Last year, my biggest VIP client gave me a call asking for a new helicopter. My first thoughts were obviously the 139, the Leonardo AW139. It's the most sold helicopter for the VIPs globally. I think about 1,600. My number two option to offer them was going to be the H160, which is the Airbus machine, launched a lot more recently, but and even though initially there were some problems with it, it's now really taken off as a VIP chopper. So those are my first two options. But in the first meeting itself, I realized they didn't want the most luxurious, they didn't want the most biggest helicopter. They needed something that would solve the problem for them. And this is the story of how really smart buyers think and why they usually end up making the best decisions. So like I said, most decisions go wrong when you start with a helicopter, not the mission. I want the biggest helicopter. I want the most range possible. I want to carry the most payload possible. Or I want the machine that looks the best when it's taking off and landing. Or if I'm not lying, a lot of times VIPs will ask you which other VIPs have a certain model of helicopter, because in the end, to them, these are all big boy toys, and a part of it is competition with their friend circle. But in this specific case, even though this specific VIP could have bought a 139 very easily, honestly, he could have bought a 139, 160, and the whole suite of other Leonardo and Airbus helicopters without even blinking an eye. So money was never going to be a problem for them. So even though he had all the financial backing he needed, he made the choice to go for a smaller helicopter. And by the end of the first meeting, I also agreed with that choice. A lot of times the buyers will not look at what really matters to them, which is the mission. What is the helicopter actually trying to solve for you? Normally when you walk into the meeting, they always ask you, what is the best helicopter out there that I can buy? In this meeting, that was not the case. In fact, they didn't ask me anything. They actually started telling me what their mission requirements were. And right away, they had a lot of international clients that would come to India to see the joint venture factories. These clients would land at the bigger airports with their private jets, but then there on in, they were driving to whatever factory location they had to. One of the examples they gave me was Ahmedabad to Rajkot. So the foreign partners would land in Ahmedabad with their private jet, but then they would end up having to take drive 200 kilometers to Rajkot, which is about a 4-hour drive, 4 hours either way, so that's 8 hours alone. Then you add on the time for the actual meetings, the security clearances, the various waiting times you need, and the general organizational structure that is required when you have the VIPs flying around. So it was a time-consuming process that would make an overnight, one-day visit into like a 2-day expedition for them. Plus including, when you have to organize cars, hotels, invariably there's some delay or the other, and there's some guy who's losing his hair because someone canceled last minute on him for them, which was time. For these people, time is money. And honestly, that's where helicopters make the most sense. Not there as big boy toys, but when they actually solve a general problem for you. In this case, it did. What they wanted was their foreign clients to land at the airport with their private jet. A buggy take them from their private jet to the helicopter takes off, lands right at the location of the factory. People get off, do whatever work they have to, the inspection, and then they leave after that. So that was the problem they were trying to solve.
Because now the question is not about which is the most luxurious helicopter or the biggest helicopter. The questions that I can now be asking them is, how many people do you want to move? What kind of helipads are they going to be landing in? Is it going to be temporary? Is it going to be a permanent? Is it going to be a rooftop helipad? Who's going to fly in it? Who is going to fly it? Who is going to take care of the machine when it goes to the remote location? So these are the questions that are a lot more relevant when it comes to owning a helicopter. The questions about bigger and better and luxurious are great when you're only thinking about delivery day, when you're popping the champagne and accepting the helicopter. But the real ownership starts when the champagne has dried out and you actually have to fly the machine. And this is not an anti-139 argument. I am a big proponent of the 139. You have to remember, when you're landing at factories, you don't have polished rooftops, you don't have fancy welcoming parties, you literally just have a land and you have to land there. So things like downwash is an issue. Things like the MRO that takes care of the machine when it lands is an issue, refueling is an issue. So those are things you start thinking about. So to me, this is where the 169 really started to make sense. It has 8-seat capacity. It has usually 6 to 8-seat capacity, but because the requirement was 8-seat, it fit that need. It is great at making shorter corporate movements. It also has less complexity when it comes to maintaining the machine, being a smaller machine. But in aviation, I honestly think it's the boring aspects of the machine that make a lot of sense. But the 169 is the only one outside the 189, which is a very big helicopter. The 169 is the only one that has the APU capability, which means that you can land the machine, keep the engine running while the rotor blades are shut off so people can get off the helicopter, get back onto the helicopter in these short 20-minute visits, right? If there's no APU capacity, then when you land, you have to wait for the engine to turn off, which is a 10 to 20-minute process, and then same thing to turn it back on in 10 to 20 minutes. So 40 minutes just turning the machine on and off. And this is because one of their people only asked us that they understood that India had a problem with pilot availability. And the 139, while it's a fantastic machine, the pilots that can fly the 139 require additional license called an ADPL license because it's a higher weight class. Same requirement is there for the 160, also for the 175 and 189, which are even bigger machines. Don't buy the helicopter that wins the brochure comparison, as they say. Buy the helicopter that made Ahmedabad to Rajkot simple. Buy the helicopter that would be able to carry 8 people without overcomplicating the whole operation. Buy the helicopter where you could easily find new pilots for. Buy the helicopter that had features that you could actually use in your corporate missions. So for this buyer, the 139 was not a bad choice. It's just that it was too much for the job they needed. It was like buying a Ferrari to go grocery shopping. All ended up, they bought the 169, it was delivered. About 3 months after the machine was delivered, I gave them a call. How is the machine? And the feedback was everything was as expected. And to you, it might seem like that's not great feedback to get for a luxury product like a helicopter, and it sounds boring, but to me, boring is great. Boring is fantastic. Boring means no drama, no surprises, no why can't we land in this area, or why can't we perform this mission, or why did we pay for this one feature that we will never use. It just means that they bought the right aircraft. I sold them the right aircraft, and now everybody's happy. So next time, either you have to buy a helicopter or you're recommending a helicopter to someone else, don't start with which helicopter should I buy. The better question is, what journey am I trying to make, or what problem am I trying to solve with a helicopter, and go from there. Because invariably, that will lead you to the better decision in the end. And definitely don't be asking about what friends have, because that is usually the worst question to be asking when buying a helicopter.